Okay, good. Well, thanks, Gary, for a great introduction to a bunch of stuff that I'll go over, but not as in depth. A lot of the career outcomes and financial perks of going to graduate school. Gary made a really good case for convincing you why it's an important and awesome career path to take. Today, I'm going to talk a little bit about the ecology program. My background is entomology, but as you can see kind of from our graphic here in the ecology program, ecology has a home for almost everyone. Ecology, we have entomologists, we have herpetologists, we have plant biologists, disease ecology, climatology, people studying everything from birds to coral to turtles and deer. So you can really find a broad array of areas that you could study if you're interested in ecology in general. Ecology is really just the study of connections. And if we think of everything as being connected, there's a way that you can connect yourself in this field. But what I wanted to talk about in general today was more on why keep going to school? And of all fields, why ecology? A lot of you and a lot of people, once you're in your undergraduate or going to school, the last thing you want to hear is stay another few years or almost 10 years in school to keep educating yourself. And I found myself in a similar situation as I progressed through school in general, and you'll find out a little bit more about my journey as I get to the point of what ecology can do for you. So why keep going to school and why ecology? Well, let's start off with some of my background. I actually have research background where I did undergraduate research with these beetles called cucumber beetles and how their sexual selection and reproduction was influenced by chemicals. I then went on to do a PhD with this crazy picture here with all these what we call multi-trophic interactions, where we look at things all the way from plants to insects that feed on plants to parasites of insects. And it got me into this field of multi-trophic research. And then I wound up doing work with coevolutionary arms races between insects and plants during my postdoc. And I put this all together to also ask important questions in agriculture and how we can use these types of fields and sciences to solve problems for keeping us all fed on this planet. When I look at this, I feel like one of the most unlikely people to end up studying all of these fields. My background, this is me right there. And here's a bunch of cousins and siblings and family. I grew up in a single mother home, and I'm one of the most unlikely people to end up in research. I don't have really anyone else in my family that studied research. And I went on a really crazy path to end up where I am, being a scientist in the Department of Entomology and head of a ecology program. Many of you already have a leg up on me as I grew up and went to high school. I actually left school. And I can explain that through my adolescent background. Here's me in high school, actually, more old funky pictures of me growing up with a bunch of my wild friends, and something about school deterred me. That's why I'm one of the most unlikely people to keep going to school as much as I do and then work in the education system. But when I was about 17, 18, my junior year of high school, it just wasn't for me. And instead of finishing it those last year and a half, I just decided to sell a bunch of my belongings, stuff things into a backpack, and I actually dropped out of high school. And I went on this long journey where I started off in Pennsylvania, hitchhiked and backpacked across Canada with this goal of getting down to Mexico. And so I did do this crazy trip, but I had a really important life-changing stop. And this was in San Diego, California, where I happened to meet a person named Edward Brinton, who passed away a few years ago now. And I met Ed because on this journey, one of my other high school friends came along with me. I met up with her in Canada, and she said, "Hey, Jared, we should stop in San Diego before we get to Mexico. My grandfather is a really cool guy. I know you're into science, but maybe we should hang out there before we go off." So I got to meet Ed, or Ned, and every day he talked to me, and I was trying to understand what he did for a living. I walked around his house. He had all these pictures of his travels around the world. He seemed to be a scientist, but I didn't understand how you could become a scientist without being a medical doctor. And so I was really confused. But Edward started to convince me and tell me more and more about what he did. And he was a researcher for Scripps Institution of Oceanography. And one day after one of our morning chats, he said, "Jared, you should come into my lab and I'll show you what I do." He brought me into his lab and he showed me these organisms, these tiny little things, these invertebrates called krill. And what he explained to me is that he can use krill to study all of the diversity of interactions, ecological interactions, from how they affect things like birds or whales, seals, and other fish. And I was amazed. And part of his major research was trying to understand krill populations to develop models for not only whale migration, but also for climate change. And he was doing this way ahead of his time. And I got this first understanding that, whoa, you get to travel the world, ask awesome questions on things that a lot of people aren't paying attention to, but solve real world problems using these ecological tools. So after my time with Ned, he said, Jared, you're a biologist, whether you like it or not. And he convinced me. I still went down to Mexico, had my fun there. That's another story for another time. But he convinced me to go back to school. So I got what I called my good enough, damn it, my general equivalence degree, or my GED. I matriculated into a community college, ended up going to the University of Delaware. I wrote a strong letter to the University of Delaware saying, hey, I'm interested in biology. I traveled around the US and I really want to study it. And I eventually got admitted to an entomology program. It was actually a Department of Entomology and Wildlife Ecology, becoming literally the face of the department. And went all the way from my GED to PhD. Here's me getting my PhD in Florida. So just for the steps it takes to get your PhD and to end up an academic like me, I got my PhD at University of Florida, went on to do a postdoctoral research, is when you get to improve your research skills and hone in on them. I did this at Cornell University in the Department of Ecology and Evolutionary Biology. I took a faculty position at Michigan State early on in 2013, and then I moved to Penn State because Penn State is an awesome place to do work in 2016. Along this journey, your life still occurs. So one thing that happens is you think you're going to go be trapped in school forever, but life still happens. Over this journey, I met my wife, who also is an entomologist and ecologist. We started our family where we would bring our kid out to give talks. This is us actually giving an interview at a radio show about insects and ecology. Now I have a family, and so you can still have your life balance and do all the cool things you want to do while you're becoming a scientist on this journey. And so now that I made this whole step from GED to PhD, there's a lot of stuff I do now that I think a lot of students in undergraduate don't get to really grasp or understand. The first thing is I have a lab group, and this is a bunch of students and postdocs and undergrads that I train, and technically they really support me in my questions. And me teaching them, they actually are learning and training, but they're building my research program. They go out and ask and solve the questions while I help them solve and give them the right tools. They really are a central home base for what I do. So you have a lab and you get to run your lab. They get to go out in the field with me and do experiments, asking multiple questions that get funded by multiple resources, as Gary alluded to. We go back to our lab and they learn technical skills in chemistry or molecular biology to answer and solve these questions at a mechanistic level. So they get training in a diverse array of cool scientific tools, both in the field and in the lab. And then I get to go around the world and travel and talk about my research findings. So this is on the research setting. Another component I get to do as a professor now is, which I really get to love, is I have opportunities to teach classes. And I love getting to teach undergraduate students about the research I do, about insects, about ecology, and give them exposure to things that a lot of them don't get to know about. So I get to do research, teach my graduate students, and I also get to teach undergraduate students. The ultimate goal is that I train my students to go out and give research talks about what they've been mastering and what they start to understand and how it's important to solve problems in either agriculture or in our world. So why keep going to school and why ecology? One of the first things when I even talk about going to graduate school or what graduate school is that undergraduates ask me is like, how will I pay for it? You know, a lot of the post-bachelorette programs that we often hear about, you have to take out loans to go for. The coolest thing that I realized when I decided to go to grad school is I would finally get paid to go to school. After all these years of mastering what school is, you finally get this opportunity to get paid to do it. So they pay your tuition, they pay your stipend, they pay your benefits. And often people say, why would I stay in graduate school? You know, I'm not getting paid as much. the complete value of your package as a graduate student in these types of sciences are often in the range of $50,000 to $80,000 because we're paying your tuition and we're paying your living expenses. So getting paid to go to school is awesome. And I think that's one barrier that a lot of people perceive that doesn't exist when you pick fields like entomology and ecology. The other thing is you get to specialize on topics that interest you. I think I wasn't as interested in school at first because I had my own major focus that I really wanted to delve into, but I wasn't given that specificity and options. So in graduate school, you can really specialize on topics that interest you. Another facet is you get to really learn what science can do. And I often thought that the only way to be a doctor was to go solve problems in human beings, go deal with blood and guts, and go to med school and go in huge debt. But then I found that you get to be a doctor that instead of just helping humans directly, you get to help the planet in different ways. And finally, the study of ecology is the study of connections. So there's multiple ways you can apply it, from either looking at connections in the field, or doing more of these kind of molecular connections, working in laboratory settings, or even in business settings, that understanding connections and how we are all connected to the planet. There's multiple ways you can use these degrees. If you end up in a graduate program like the one we have at Penn State, you get to gain understanding through ecological theory and hypotheses testing, just asking questions and solving them. You conduct research that tests things like basic theories and how these get to applied in multiple societal needs. You get to engage with faculty like myself, and in the ecology program here at Penn State, we have just over 50 faculty and close to 60 graduate students. And then you get to develop things that often we don't think about, like your communication skills and leadership skills that you can apply to a wide array of careers. And finally, the offerings mean that you could either go for your master's degree, which is a bit shorter and more of a smaller project, or you could go for your PhD, which gives you a larger scale with multiple chapters and multiple research projects as your terminal post-bachelor degree. If you're interested in the ecology program, you could check out our website. We have a bunch of details about the people, degree requirements, and student resources. And the applications, you can see what it takes to apply for here. It gives you all the details, what type of financial aid you need, and the pre-application issues that you might have. You can actually submit a pre-application, which means when you're ready, you can do a pre-application, and then faculty can vet and get in touch with you if they're interested in what your interests are. So that's all I have to talk about today. If you have more questions, you could just reach out to me. My email is jga8@psu.edu. And if you are interested in either entomology or ecology or any kind of programs or what graduate school can do for you in general, I love talking to people about professional development and pathways to study science.